Remember that legendary "You," Craig and Smokey shouted in Friday? That one moment became internet gold, and the film itself a timeless icon. But while the world laughed, many cast members were living through heartbreak, illness, and untold tragedy behind the scenes. Today we revisit their lives, some cut short, some forgotten, all unforgettable. Hit like and tell us which cast member left the biggest mark on you. John Witherspoon played Mr. Willie Jones, the no-nonsense but big-hearted dad in Friday, 1995, when he was 53 years old. Whether he was yelling about the bathroom or throwing out hilarious one-liners, Mr. Jones brought warmth, chaos, and comedy to every scene. He was the kind of father figure everyone laughed with and wished they had. But off-screen, John Witherspoon's own life was nothing like the character he played. Born on January 27, 1942 in Detroit, Michigan, John rose through the ranks of comedy with undeniable talent. But fame, as it often does, came at a steep price. Behind the jokes and sold-out tours was a man quietly drowning in loneliness. His marriage to Angela Robinson, which appeared solid since 1988, was slowly falling apart. Years of constant travel and relentless filming, especially during his success with the Wayans brothers, turned his once happy home into a silent place. His children barely knew him. He often came back from tours feeling like a guest in his own house. Witherspoon once said, "Fame gave me everything, then took it all away." And those words weren't just poetic, they were painfully true. He stayed up in hotel rooms night after night, haunted by the applause that followed him on stage but never filled the silence when the curtains closed. Even with an estimated net worth of $8 million, money couldn't mend the cracks that fame had carved into his personal life. In his final years, Witherspoon began experiencing heart pains, a quiet warning that his body was catching up to the stress he carried for decades. On October 29, 2019, tragedy struck. John Witherspoon passed away suddenly from a heart attack at the age of 77 in his Sherman Oaks home. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills, surrounded by legends just like himself. His legacy? 1,000 laughs and a hidden sorrow few ever saw. Anthony Johnson played the crafty, twitchy addict Easel, a character so outrageous and real that he instantly became a fan favorite. His comedic timing was razor-sharp, and his facial expressions could get a laugh before he even spoke. But the tragedy? That character, the one meant to make us laugh, ended up becoming a mirror of his real life. Born on February 1, 1966 in Compton, California, Anthony grew up in the shadow of a famous father, veteran stuntman Eddie Smith. It should have been a head start. Instead, it became a burden. The pressure to live up to the family name crushed his confidence, and after his moment in the spotlight with Friday, the roles dried up. So he turned to something else: drugs. They didn't just numb the pain, they swallowed him whole. His marriage to Lexis Jones Mason offered a flicker of hope. Together, they had 3 daughters, Antette, Natasha, and Beyond. For a while, it looked like he might hold it together, but addiction and poverty pulled the threads apart. He missed too many moments, too many meals. Fights over money turned into long silences, and eventually the home cracked wide open. By 2004, he was alone. The phone stopped ringing. The laughter stopped. Small gigs couldn't lift him out of debt, and the energy he once lit up the screen with had turned into quiet exhaustion. In 2009, a panic attack at the airport nearly took him down, but he kept pushing even as his health declined. Organ failure came slowly and painfully. Broken, Anthony couldn't even afford proper treatment. On September 6, 2021, he was found unresponsive at home. At 55, he died in a Los Angeles hospital, his body worn down by years of struggle and silent suffering. The coroner cited multi-organ failure worsened by undetected COVID. His net worth was just $100,000, most of it tied to his childhood home in Compton. Once a symbol of family pride, now a quiet, crumbling echo of a man who once made the world laugh. He died unseen, his legacy, a warning wrapped in laughter. Tommy Tiny Lister Jr. played Debo, the neighborhood bully everyone feared. With his cold glare and towering frame, Debo became instantly iconic, the guy who could steal your bike and your lunch money with just one look. But the man behind the menace, his real story was one of quiet pain, hardship, and a battle that never made it to the screen. Lister was born on June 24, 1958 in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and came into the world already carrying a burden. He was blind in his right eye from birth due to a detached retina. While others saw weakness, he found strength in sports. Shot put gave him purpose. Acting gave him hope. By the 1980s, he was a national champion and soon after a recognizable face in over 200 film roles. But fame, as it often does, didn't just open doors, it led him into darkness. In 2012, Lister pleaded guilty in a mortgage fraud scheme that caused over $3.8 million in damages. Though he tried to rebuild, the scandal crushed his momentum. Roles dried up. The phone stopped ringing. He had married Felicia Forbes in South Africa, and they had a son together, but the stress, financial, emotional, and physical, grew like a wedge inside the home. Diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at 55, his health quickly spiraled. Then came COVID-19. He recovered from the initial infection in 2020, but the aftermath lingered like a shadow. He struggled to breathe, barely able to get through the day. Behind closed doors, the once unstoppable Debo was now exhausted, alone, and quietly slipping away. On December 10, 2020, police found Lister deceased in his Marina Del Rey home. He was just 62. The official cause, heart disease brought on by high blood pressure and arteriosclerosis. His estimated net worth was $1 million, mostly tied to that final home, once a dream, now a quiet reminder of everything he fought for and lost. Debo may have ruled the block, but Tiny's real life was a fight far harder than anything Hollywood ever wrote. LaWanda Page played the sharp-tongued old lady in Friday, 1995, when she was 74. Her appearance was brief but unforgettable, one of those characters that lit up the screen for a moment and somehow stayed with you forever. She brought laughter in a neighborhood filled with chaos, and her presence reminded fans of her legendary turn as Aunt Esther in Sanford and Son, fiery, funny, and fearless. But LaWanda's life off-screen? It was a battlefield. Born on October 19, 1920 in Cleveland, she faced danger before she ever faced a camera. As a young performer, she danced with fire in smoky nightclubs, surrounded by violence and threats. Guns, knives, and drunken brawls were part of her nightly backdrop. The burn scars on her body weren't just physical, they were proof of what she had to survive to chase her dreams. Married at just 14, she lost her first child in infancy. That heartbreak never left her. 3 husbands followed, each of them dying too young, leaving LaWanda with a soul that grew wary of love and trust. From age 30, she chose solitude over risk, pouring everything she had into the stage. It became her only real home. As a black woman in an industry that often overlooked her, she had to claw her way into every opportunity, but she never gave up. Her performances were full of fire, grit, and the pain of lived experience. That's why Aunt Esther resonated. That's why the old lady in Friday, though barely there, felt so real. In her later years, diabetes slowly drained her energy and took away the spotlight she once commanded. Work dried up. Commercials and small roles kept her afloat, but barely. By the time she appeared in Friday, it wasn't just for fun, it was survival. On September 14, 2002, LaWanda Page passed away from complications related to diabetes. She was 81. Her estate was modest, about $500,000, tied to a small home in Los Angeles and a few savings from decades of tireless work. But her legacy, it's priceless. She made the world laugh while privately walking through fire. Michael Clark Duncan played the neighborhood craps player, a blink-and-you-miss-it role. But even in seconds, his presence was unforgettable. Towering, calm, with a quiet charisma, he felt like someone destined for more. And he was. But the road to that destiny, it nearly broke him. Born December 10, 1957 in Chicago, Michael grew up in a fatherless home. His mother, a janitor, worked grueling hours just to feed her 2 kids. Duncan dropped out of college to carry the family on his back, literally. He dug ditches, hauled cement, and eventually moved to Los Angeles, where he guarded celebrities like Will Smith and LL Cool J, not as a star, but as their silent protector. The irony? He was right there in Hollywood, but invisible. Casting directors saw muscles, not talent. He was labeled the big guy over and over again: thug, bouncer, bodyguard, roles with no voice and no soul. Meanwhile, Michael had both, and a dream that refused to die. When the Green Mile arrived, everything changed. His role as John Coffey cracked open the world's heart and finally showed who he really was: a gentle giant with depth, vulnerability, and power. But fame came with its own shadows. His relationship with reality star Omarosa looked perfect on the outside, but behind closed doors it was riddled with tension. When Duncan suffered a heart attack in 2012, that tension turned toxic. His family accused Omarosa of isolating him, manipulating his will, and cutting them out of his final days. What should have been a time for healing became a storm of pain and betrayal. Even while recovering, Duncan never stopped fighting. He bulked up for roles like Kingpin and Daredevil, pushing his body past its limits. But inside, he was growing tired, emotionally and physically. The world still saw the big guy. Few saw the man. On September 3, 2012, after nearly 2 months battling respiratory failure, Michael Clark Duncan passed away at age 54. His death sent shockwaves through Hollywood. At his quiet, emotional funeral, friends like Tom Hanks and Jay Leno paid tribute, not to a muscle man, but to a man of soul, strength, and silent struggle. He broke through the Hollywood wall, but it cost him more than anyone ever knew. Bernie Mac played Pastor Clever, the quick-witted preacher with a sharp tongue and a side-eye that could cut through chaos. His role was short but electric, every line laced with that signature Bernie Mac flavor, bold, biting, and unforgettable. But while the world laughed, Bernie was quietly carrying a weight most never saw. Born October 5, 1957 in Chicago, Bernie's pain started early. He lost his mother while still in high school, then soon after, his brother and estranged father. That string of losses carved a permanent hollow in his heart, one that leaked into every role, giving his comedy a strangely familiar sting of truth. At 20, he married his high school sweetheart, Rhonda Gore, clinging to the hope of peace and stability. They had a daughter, but Bernie's career took off like a rocket, and rockets don't land easily. He toured endlessly, filmed nonstop, and spent more nights in hotels than at home. He once admitted that making people laugh often meant coming home to silence. The applause followed him everywhere, except to his dinner table. Behind the scenes, he was battling a brutal enemy, sarcoidosis. It inflamed his lungs, stole his sleep, and drained his energy, but Bernie refused to let it show. He wore his smile like armor, protecting his fans, his family, and maybe even himself from the truth. But every standing ovation came at a higher cost. Still, he worked relentlessly. The Bernie Mac Show, Ocean's 11, Mr. 3000, Soul Men. Success piled up, but so did the fatigue. On August 9, 2008, after 3 grueling weeks in the hospital, Bernie Mac passed away at just 50 years old from complications related to pneumonia brought on by sarcoidosis. He left behind a legacy worth $15 million, but the real treasure was the way he made people feel. Bold, brave, seen. He died fighting to make the world laugh, even as he struggled just to breathe. Ray played Red's anxious, old-school father, the guy who tried, and hilariously failed, to protect his son from Debo's beatdown. With just a few lines and worried glances, he delivered laughs that stuck with fans long after the scene ended. It was a blink-and-you-miss-it role, but for Ronaldo Ray, it became his most remembered. Born Harry Reynolds on January 27, 1940 in Wichita Falls, Texas, Ray didn't enter showbiz until later in life. Before the stage, he stood in front of classrooms as a teacher, holding on to dreams he'd nearly abandoned. When he finally made the leap into entertainment, he gave it everything. He starred in over 50 films, including Harlem Nights with legends like Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. But fame, that never came easy. Ray was stuck in the margins, always the funny guy, never the headliner. Financial pressure haunted him. He juggled small paychecks, praying the next gig would finally lift him up. Then came the blow that hit harder than any punch on screen. His only marriage collapsed. The divorce was bitter, expensive, and left him emotionally and physically cut off from his children. That wound never fully healed. As the years passed, Ray's health deteriorated. A massive stroke in 2014 took away more than his mobility. It ended his career, silenced his voice, and locked him in the quiet of a modest home in Los Angeles. The once vibrant comic who lit up rooms with a glance now struggled to walk, to speak, to even laugh. On May 28, 2015, Ronaldo Ray passed away from stroke complications at the age of 75. His net worth was estimated at $500,000, mostly tied up in the small home where he spent his final years in solitude. No final standing ovation, no big headlines. He was the comic who made millions laugh, but left the stage without ever getting his due. Chris Tucker played Smokey, the fast-talking, wild-eyed buddy who kept getting into trouble and somehow made it hilarious every time. With infectious energy and razor-sharp timing, he lit up the screen and helped make Friday a cult classic. At just 23, he was the breakout star everyone was talking about. But life off-screen wasn't all jokes and punchlines. Born on August 31, 1971 in Atlanta, Tucker skyrocketed to fame with Friday and Rush Hour. For a while, he was one of the highest-paid stars in Hollywood, but success can be slippery. Poor money decisions and failed investments landed him in serious debt. The IRS came after him for nearly $10 million in unpaid taxes, a fortune he once had all but vanished. At home, things weren't easier. His marriage to Ozza Pryor ended, and he was left to raise their son, Destin, on his own. Tucker worked hard to shield Destin from the glare of fame, but the pressure of being a single father in the public eye was real. Stress and exhaustion started to take a toll, and the man who once owned the spotlight quietly stepped away from it. But what surprised many fans was the reason he turned down Next Friday and Friday After Next. It wasn't about money, it was about conviction. Tucker didn't want to glorify marijuana use anymore, a choice that got him both praise and backlash. Over time, the chaos of Hollywood and the loss of close friends pushed him toward a quieter path, one grounded in faith, reflection, and healing. Now at 53, Chris Tucker lives a more private, grounded life in Atlanta. He's no longer chasing box office numbers. He's investing in people, family, and causes that matter. His estimated net worth is around $5 million, but more importantly, he seems at peace. Smokey made us laugh till our sides hurt, but Chris Tucker, he's chosen something deeper, a life of purpose beyond the screen. Ice Cube played Craig Jones, the laid-back, street-smart guy stuck at home on a Friday, dodging trouble in every direction. With just a glance or a sarcastic jab, he made Craig both relatable and unforgettable. What most people don't know is Ice Cube didn't just star in the film. He co-wrote it, turned it into a cultural lightning rod, and unknowingly changed the face of black comedy forever. Born O'Shea Jackson Sr. on June 15, 1969 in Los Angeles, Ice Cube came of age on the city's rougher edges. When his half-sister was murdered in a domestic dispute, he was just 12. That trauma never left him. It became the fire beneath his lyrics and the edge in his storytelling. As one of the original members of NWA, he helped define gangster rap, but when he walked away over financial betrayal, the backlash was vicious. Former bandmates threatened him, the press hounded him, fans turned cold. He felt alone in the very movement he helped build. Behind the music and movie empire, there was always a quiet storm. Ice Cube married Kimberly Woodruff in 1992, and while their bond endured, the weight of fame constantly tested it. 4 kids, an exploding career, and swirling tabloid rumors meant home life wasn't always peaceful. He fought hard to protect his family, but even harder to protect himself from being swallowed by the industry. And the pain never stopped knocking. From Eazy-E to Tupac, too many friends died too young. Every funeral was a reminder of how fragile this life is, even when you seem untouchable. Despite building a $160 million empire with mansions and luxury cars, Cube once said, "It never really feels like enough when you're constantly boxed in." But giving up was never an option. At 55, Ice Cube is still going full speed, producing, acting, and pushing boundaries through Big 3, his revolutionary 3-on-3 basketball league, and films that dare to say something deeper. For him, it's no longer about fame, it's about legacy. Because Craig might have been stuck on the porch, but Ice Cube, he's never stopped moving. Friday wasn't just a comedy, it was a cultural earthquake. Decades later, we still laugh at the jokes, quote the lines, and remember every wild moment from the block. But behind those laughs were lives shaped by pain, struggle, and sometimes heartbreaking loss. Every cast member left their own mark, and their stories remind us that fame doesn't always come with peace. So now it's your turn. Which Friday character lives rent-free in your memory? Drop their name in the comments and hit that like button if any of these stories moved you.